hot takes out there today.
All right.
Wow, how about that? Day after, does that ever happen?
180.
Day after what? Oh, yeah. No, never. Look it up. All right.
April 5th.
PFAs.
Like the beer dad
Old
used to keep.
Royce Mills.
Man, that was an 80% chance it was going to be awful soda.
Royce, Dad's beer was like that.
Okay.
Let's roll it.
Okay. How long we been off? A month?
Yep. 2 months?
Probably 2 by the time we're done, right? By the time
These
we
will
get
be up
this
by
rolling.
next. These
will
will
be
probably
up
be
by
up by Friday.
Yeah, she's
Who knows?
pretty good about that.
Okay.
June 20. Yeah, a little over
Ready?
a month then.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Daily Edge. We took a little hiatus, summer break, as summers get super busy for all of us. Excited to be back. Got a new topic today. It's right around the time where we're going back to school. And for those of you that aren't from Indiana, I believe the length of the school year is pretty, I know there's some federal guidelines, but I believe state by state, there are some different variations. I talked to somebody that was from Minnesota, and they start the week after Labor Day. Here in the great state of Indiana, we have a 180-day mandatory school year. Our kids are getting ready to go back to school. Mine start August 5th and 6th. And
Mine start tomorrow.
your kids start tomorrow?
Yes.
Like July.
Tomorrow morning.
What? That's
Whatever
unbelievable.
day that is.
This will air a little bit after that, but
July 30th.
now you guys are on a little bit different of
Yeah,
the
we're
school. You're kind of a block thing. Anyways, we're going to spend today talking about the school system, the amount of time the kids are in school. We're going to have different opinions and variations. We'll probably use all of our AI friends to help us with research throughout this. But I got to say, being someone that likes to spend time at the lake and play golf in the summer and spend time with the kids, going back to school the first week of August is seems a little ridiculous. So I'd love to know, I don't know if either of you, if you just looked it up, I'd love to know when the school, like, okay, the school year started and like how long was it and when did they push it to 180 days? Because I don't feel like we went to school that long when we were growing up.
I don't have the answer
look it
yet.
up.
I'd be curious to know the source of it. So certainly there's a frustration for you there. What is your thought? Just you like a kind of a longer summer?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, I think there was a point in time where probably majority of people were undereducated. I don't know if you guys feel that. Like, when was it Thomas Jefferson that's like, there's going to be a school in every township? Wasn't that his big thing where people not everyone could read or write, or that was more of a, I don't want to say a fallacy, but like majority of the population didn't have some of those skill sets. So he's like, I'm putting a school in every township to educate everybody, and education to get the basic skills necessary to do the things you need to do. Now we're in an environment and universe where people have basic education for the most part, at least where we're at and in the area, at least in the United States. So to me, it's like, do we really need to be in school 180 days a year from an educational standpoint? And moving forward, I feel like with AI and some of the technical things that are going to be swallowed up, there is social skills, there's other things that people can be learning outside of school. So I feel like we have down days all the time. We have, the first 3 or 4 days before this break or that break or the last week of school. There's probably 2 weeks in there already that are just kind of fillers. I think we can get what we need to accomplished and probably 150 days. I would push to move to a 5-month schedule, but that's just me. There's my
So I
frustration.
did a little bit of research just for context as we move through this conversation. So it looks like, we're talking a 19th century, right? So a while ago, the school calendar was in rural areas based around planting and harvest. It's about 100-day school year, but conversely in urban areas is like 200 to 240 days. So they were basically in school all the time. And then mid 20th century is kind of when it went to the 180 days, kind of the 9-month approach. And nowadays, across states, that's pretty consistent. There are a couple of states that let districts choose. And it's kind of funny, you mentioned Minnesota. They have the least number of school days of anywhere in the country that doesn't let districts choose. They're at 165. But there have been, from what I'm seeing, over 900 schools across districts, heavily concentrated out west, it looks like. Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon, Idaho, Oklahoma, they're going to 4-day school weeks, similar to those 4-day work weeks. So that's, I think, there for context. And, for me, it's always been, I've always looked at school a little bit differently because I took a different path than the both of you. For me, school was all about social development. I mean, we don't have to go back down the rabbit hole of my lack of academic performance, but it was, for me, I look back on that as an extremely vital time in my life, especially when I got to high school. Being around so few kids my age and being around, we've had the discussion in my 8th grade class, there were 12 people. And I had been around those 12 people since we were elementary. So it was basically like going to school with your family. And it was a lot of those same dynamics, right? Like some days you're in the in crowd, some days you're not, versus larger schools where you can find your people and you have those people. So, I agree with you academically to a point. I'm sure Todd's got maybe a different opinion there, that there are things that can be supplemented similarly to the 4-day work week. We have the ability to deliver information in a more succinct fashion, get it to people a little bit more quickly. But conversely, for me, I don't see, you talk about learning social skills. I don't see another opportunity outside of potentially sports to build the social skills that are relevant to that age group. Meaning that, like, I think there's something to be said about working your way through the dynamics of social skills, dealing with 6th graders, dealing with 8th graders, dealing with freshmen. Like you're gonna, I think there's a dynamic there that you learn dealing with different people at different levels that builds upon itself as you go through adulthood. And I think skipping that and not being in an environment where you're surrounded by potentially hundreds of kids your age could be interesting. And we've talked before, I've seen it go really well for a handful of people, and I've seen it go not well for a handful of people. So it may be.
You're talking about homeschooling. We're talking about 2 or 3 weeks of.
No, I mean, you said like 2 or 3 weeks of summer, whatever. Like I start to see dynamics change the longer the kids are out of school. Because we have that really short break. So as we get towards the tail end of that, I see there seems to be like a mental shift. Like they're getting a little bit more whiny, and I think maybe that. And I'm sorry for ranting so long, going so long, but I think maybe that is related to the synergy that's there around parents' work schedules in school, right? So like, I think a lot of parents utilize that school year to be able to go, to be able to work essentially and hold a full-time job. And without that, the kids are, in today's society, kind of forced into like tablet mode.
You talk a little bit about, cause your guys' schedule. So you have you get 2 weeks you have like 2 weeks for fall break and 2 weeks for spring break. Tell us a little bit, cause you guys have an extremely short summer because of that.
Yeah. It's like 7 to 8 weeks. I think we got out, either the very end of May or the very first week of June, and we're back the last week of July. So I think it's about 8 weeks. And, it's a double-edged sword, right? Double-edged meaning that, like, yeah, it would be, there are benefits, I think, to having a longer summer and getting to do a little bit more stuff, maybe do this, that, and the other thing. But there's also, like, for me, I work from home and it gets extremely overwhelming. Today's a great example for me. And I think this is like, we've talked a lot about screen time and things like that in the past, right? And I think, all try to be pretty present parents and not utilize that to watch our kids. But today is a great example where my whole day fell completely apart. I didn't deliver like I should have on a lot of my responsibilities because I was carting my kids around because their mom was working today and they weren't in school. And so for me, over time, we all have a conscience, and it starts to build as I, shirk responsibilities to manage them during the week. And so a lot of times that results in, hey, go sit on your phone, or go, hey, sit on your tablet. And then their behavior, as we've talked about, devolves over an 8-month or an 8-week summer into like chaos because we've had to do that more than we'd like.
Is your concern days or hours or both? Meaning, like, it's at our school,
Days.
the kids go 170 days, but they're 7-hour days.
Fine.
Or like if it's like
Hours
kids
is
could go
fine, days.
longer. It's days
it's
that's more of
days.
the concern. You would rather them go longer days for a shorter number of days.
Yeah, and I'm just not certain they need 180 days of education. And I think we have a tendency to talk about, and you guys especially, when we talk about these scenarios, we look at it through our lens of the age of our kids.
Mhm.
So take that. Would you say that your opinion changes any different for your over 14-year-old crowd that works, that goes and picks up part-time jobs and learns some of those social skills, whether they're at Starbucks or wherever doing retail? Does that shift the way you look at that at all?
I feel like high schools don't a lot of them have learning programs where they are working 3 hours a day? So that counts as school?
Yeah, I think our school allows seniors to do it. They don't allow juniors. They don't allow sophomores. But if you're 14 in the state of Indiana, you can go apply for a job. You can work a certain amount of hours a week. So a lot of kids, I know, like, for example, in Marion, the Splash House is a big deal, and all the kids want to go be lifeguards, and they have 40 lifeguards, and that's the fun they have, and they're doing it in a different context, but they're getting jobs, and they're doing different types of social activities. We all have younger kids, so we're talking about, you got to be parent involved to do this and do that. I don't know if that's always the case.
So go back to kind of your premise here. You were saying it's unnecessary, and I think there's some truth to that, because I think most homeschool people that I talk to say their curriculums, genuinely they could get through in 3 hours or so if
100%.
they needed to. So you could argue that the school day there's lunches, there's recesses, there's PE, that sort of stuff is kind of doubled. I think for a lot of reasons. Some of it I do believe is probably around parents' schedules and their ability to hold a job. What would you like to see them? Is it jobs? Is it being able to spend more time leisurely? Like, where do you think that time would be better spent? And if the schools weren't in session, for periods of time, how many kids would engage in that particular alternative?
I would like just families in general to have more time in the summer, to have longer summers, to do more things. So I guess you could say that's leisure, but there's also other activities depending on, I guess a lot of it puts the pressure back on the family unit to provide that level of, whether it's intentionality or it's fun or it's gatherings, whatever that, or it's or it's travel, that it would kind of fall back on the parent to use that time as they see fit.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting here like, oh, well, we should give them a week of boot camp or a week of this or a week of that. I don't really have a specific. I just feel like that we're going to school longer, and we are. It's only 5 days longer. It was in 1987. It went from 175 to 180. I think, could we accomplish what we need to from an educational standpoint in a shorter window? what I think I hear both you saying is probably, but is that still a good thing because there's other things happening? I think that's the kind of the feedback I'm getting from you guys.
I think my question, is like for what? Like for leisure, I'm more purpose oriented. So I would say like the last thing I want is kids laying around doing nothing longer. I would say, could there be a better use of that time? Because I mean, I love the work and school program that you mentioned. I think seniors maybe around here can do. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think, when I look at the school year, I think kids do get burnout at certain times and they struggle to stay focused for that long, those several hours a day for weeks and weeks in a row. So I think there might be an opportunity to have some more breaks in there. I do enjoy the summer, but I wouldn't necessarily say now we're in a little bit of a unique situation because we've got two working, different in that. Jen and I both have jobs that kind of have us locked up from 8:30 to 5. So the idea of having fewer school days or shorter school days would put more pressure there, and that would complicate things for us. I would say.
Well, you said your kids already only go 170 days based
Correct.
on the school they're in, so you're kind of
Yeah.
already there. It was interesting. I was having this conversation. I was getting my hair cut today, and it's someone I've never gone to, and she's a hairstylist, and I just asked her. We just got talking, and I'm like, going back to school, and she's got a 5-year-old, and she's working till 8 p.m. tonight. And I asked her, because I was thinking the same thing. I said, I think kids going back to school so early. What are your thoughts around this? Like you working, not a traditional 8 to 5 job, and she's like, well, my son's dad, he works in Anderson and he works these days. And because I was thinking, does it help dual working families or would they prefer longer summers? And she's like, actually, I would prefer to have a longer summer. Like this is how we would stage it. And I was actually surprised by the answer. That's why I'm bringing it up. Not that it validates what I think, but I do think it is somewhat situational. We're obviously super biased because we live at a different house in the summer. So for us, we create meaningful experience after meaningful experience and event after event that the kids get to be a part of. And we create events for them and their friends and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of extra things that we're able to do. But I know people that they have sailboats on Lake Michigan and they want to spend more time up there or they want to do different things from a travel standpoint. So do you guys believe from just like structure, social context, like adults work, kids go to school, like the system's built and that, would you say the system works? And because I don't know if 1987 was the last time they changed the bones of the system. Would you say those still stand and ring true today?
I would say, and I was been thinking about my initial commentary, like boiling that down and trying to uncover kind of what message I was trying to convey. And I think that, one of the things we've talked about a lot is structure. And I think it's been, articulated in our conversations that children thrive in structured situations. And so I think my earlier commentary was around like, for me, between school and sports, I think those are our best options in terms of providing meaningful structure on all sides of the equation. Society, like you would say, like parallel societal structure for kids. Do I think it's perfect? No, but I don't know. I don't see any way out that's much better until you hit a particular level of financial well-being. Meaning that like we're not, Tara and or I are not in a position to lose a job, right? So to speak. And so, I was talking earlier about how towards the end of the summer, my kids get difficult. And now like thinking about that a little bit after I said it, it's also because July in specific is the 1 month where there's no soccer practices. Like most of the sports take the 3 to 4 weeks off, and so that's why there's so much pent up energy. There's not any structure. Everything is fluid and flowing. So I don't know of another way around it because I'll tell you by the end of the summer, I feel so and this is selfishly, insignificant as it relates to being able to follow through on commitments. I'm late on everything. I'm, pushing this here, pushing this here, pushing this here, because my number one priority is my kids. If I had a little bit more of a flexible lifestyle where I could afford to, push off more MTC stuff, push off more day-to-day stuff, then I think I'd feel a little bit differently. But honestly, I'm pretty stoked for tomorrow because I won't have a completely fractured week.
This brings back, I mean, I think you talked about the half school day and the curriculum. I think the implicit assumption there is that educations are predominantly there to educate the kids, right? Like it's purely conveying information that they're going to use throughout their academic career that may or may not in some capacity feed into. What would you guys say the goals of school is beyond education? So they're obviously filling a 6.5 hour workday. Are there other or a 6.5 hour day? Are there other things that you think schools are accomplishing and or are helping from a developmental perspective outside of the raw education aspect?
I think the clear answers are social is obviously one of them. The question is it better than the alternative, right? Because like if you say physical, spiritual, social, mental wellness, all those things are important. And I think it goes back to your values and what you value as a person. I think they get a component of all of that, right? They got to do things they don't want to. They got discipline. They've got interaction with whoever they have to interact with, whether they're their friend or not their friend, or handling difficult situations. I would say there's a lot of other components in there, but I think some of those can happen in different environments.
I think I kind of articulated all of that initially. Like that was kind of my statement is, yeah, I think there's definitely other things. And I just know that, again, in our family structure, we don't have the resources to provide those other situations. Like we just don't.
But your neighborhood is, your house is a revolving door of kids.
Sure.
And I would ask you, do you think your kids get more social at school or when they're running around the neighborhood in the summer? Because I've been there.
Yeah, there are days where there's a lot going on where, Kay in specific in the last week has been spending like 5-6 hours a day with friends over swimming and doing these things, and Miles will be in and out. So there is definitely some of that. Again, this is kind of selfish, but it goes back to some of these instances, and not all of them. I have to be, if not present, at least conscious of what's going on and involved in some capacity. So like, yeah, they get a good amount of that. Probably a little bit more at school because, there are days where there's a lot of it. There's days where there's not a lot of it. At school, it's every day. So I don't think they don't get it at home. I just don't like, I don't know, man. I've had
it sounds like you like them back in school because it gives you time to do the things you need to do. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
more than anything.
It's just, we're the middle state I'm in. My last week, just to divulge, Miles was at soccer camp last week at Butler, which is an hour and a half round trip because they're working on 31. So I get up, I leave to take him to camp at 7:30. I get home at 9. Kay is running twice a week because it's off season, right? She's got practice at 10. So I go home, I pick her up, practice at 10. We get home at 11:30. It's 11:30 and I've done nothing at all, right? And then, if Tara's not home yet, then I've got to leave to get Miles. Practice is over at 3, so I have to leave at 2:10. So I've got from 11:30 to 2:10, throw a shower and lunch in there. I've got about an hour and a half. And then I go pick him up at 3. And then I come home. And then Kennedy's got cheer where she has to leave at 4:30 because Tara's not getting home from work until 5:30. So take it to Kennedy to cheer. She's picked up at 7. So all of a sudden, I'm doing all of my work between 12 and 2:20 and from like 7 to 11:30 at night. And of course I'm trying to answer emails, but you guys know how that feels when, I mean, I think both of you, I had to turn FSD back on in my Tesla because I'm having to work in the car so much, like dictating emails and taking phone calls and doing all of these things. And that was the entire week last week and this week. As we've discussed in terms of the summer being so busy, I was 10 minutes late today because of dynamics very similar to that. So I will say that, and I'm beating a dead horse, selfishly, I do like the freedom it gives. Now, if that was different and we had the 4-day school day and it was just a weekend, I'm all in on that, right? Like versus the longer, like taking the long breaks that are already long and making them longer. If we took those days and there was 4-day school days and everybody got an extra, then that's more digestible for somebody in our situation.
Which would take it almost to like 151 days.
Which I mean, I don't think the problem is academics. I think we have so many different ways that we can provide that information in a manner that's more efficient than it has been in the past. And I think that, we can supplement social with, like you said, in my neighborhood, having a Friday where the kids are free to roam. They'll get that same on that Friday that they would have probably gotten at school, or at least a semblance of that. But so I guess let me clarify, extending the already 8-week break for us would be just complete chaos. But so I do agree with the premise that, 150 to 160 whatever days done the right way could work.
I thought this might be interesting. I just thought, okay, what are people doing globally?
That's what I looked up too.
The U.S. is 6th out of 42 countries, so among the most hours, although shorter on the days. The OECD average year spreads typically across 190 days as opposed to 180. So we actually already go, when you're comparing globally, we have a little fewer days but longer days. It did point out that there are a couple, Japan, Korea, Finland, fewer compulsory hours than the U.S., but outperform it from a testing perspective. So certainly there's...
well, it's because you count hours, and like you mentioned, like there's 5 hours of what's called downtime a day, but those are counted as hours in school where you could be more effective. So my guess is some of those other STEM countries that are really better at test scoring are just more effective.
Except for China. China, and Julia has told us this. Julia is our point of contact in China for the Eternize project. They found Chinese students studying about 57 hours per week against an OECD average of 44.
They don't have a choice.
So, yeah.
It's cultural.
And the return per hour is still poor. So there is I'm sure there is a threshold of hours to output that could be optimized, but that's how I would approach the problem. Is what do we want to accomplish with that time? What's a better use of that time? And how could we do that? To me, I want more time to screw around is a horrible reason to abandon the system.
Just depends what you call screwing around. Like I think, here's an example.
I consider making memories in that.
Yeah,
in
which
that
I think this is where we'll completely debate and I could
what are
point
memories
evidence.
good for? Let's just have a fun debate.
Okay.
Here. What are memory? What the hell are memories good for?
Memories are building relationships, and relationships are everything. Without making memories with people and just going around doing everything for purpose and not being a part of something, you get disconnected. Making memories and building relationships is more important than anything else in my opinion.
That is a large jump from making memories is making relationships.
But that's what that is. Like you talk about like, okay.
That presumes that unless you're making memories, meaning you're basically, when I hear memories, I think you're doing leisure things that are enjoyable and convenient and
this is great.
Desires of the flesh.
Okay.
Right? We'll call them desires of the flesh. We're gonna sit there, we're gonna eat what we want, we're gonna listen to what we want, we're gonna relax, and we're gonna make memories, okay? There are dozens of ways to build relationships that don't have to center around leisure activity, because I build relationships all the time in discussions, and I would say you build stronger relationships when you're accomplishing something with someone together. The strongest relationships, when you look at like even fraternities, fraternity bonds at colleges are some of the strongest bonds that last well beyond the collegiate years.
Let's talk about fraternities.
Fraternities, and some of that, I would say,
All the
a good
purpose-driven
portion of that,
activities that you guys did.
well, I would say it's going through something together difficult. Like if it's like
Let's
making
finish a cake
memories,
together.
hey, let's go with the kids to the Spartan camp where we're like gonna discipline and like push through stuff. Like the bond that you have with your fraternity brothers is about the borderline hell that you go through together. And that is a lot
All
of
that
times what
stuff
bonds.
is
So-
meaningless, though. It's all in scheme of things. I'm not saying you can't do stuff together, but you're doing drinking things together. You're doing other.
I don't think that's where the bonds are formed, though, because there's a lot of people you drink with at college, but you don't. Those aren't the bonds that last. The bonds that last are the people that you do meaningful things with and accomplish things. So, I have breakfasts and lunches with people all the time, centered around like trying to accomplish something, improve something, make something better, and those relationships are formed and bonds that are built. This whole like pure memory thing. And so that's the leap I'm not with you on, that making memories is the only way to build relationships, and that's predominantly what you're doing.
You're taking the statement, making memories, and saying all that is leisure fluff. Like making memories is so like, okay, Alec came to the lake, you came to the lake, that was all leisure, so that's not important. Shouldn't invite you next year. I mean, that's like the stuff we're talking about. 4th of July, you got 30, 40 people all together making memories. Your kids are going to grow up remembering going out on the jet skis and flying across the lake and doing those different things. Oliver on the tube, like those are making memories. And if those aren't important, then I'm completely missing the boat.
The balance for me, I do think there's a balance. There's like a mental wellness balance. For me, I also have memories of getting thrown off the jet ski at 12 years old that I still don't enjoy water. My point in that is, do I see value in spending time away from a screen and unwinding? Yes. Is there a threshold and a balance there where like, okay, we've done like that's there. And in fact, I'm actually now starting to go the other way where I'm having, because I've, so much leisure, I'm having trouble even focusing and accomplishing things. Yeah, I think it's absolutely a balance, but I think the value is in getting to a healthy state mental balance. Do I think my kids in 30 years are going to be advantaged and they're going to be in a better position in life because they rode jet skis at 12 or 10 or 8 than not necessarily. Does it give me additional opportunities to bond with them? Sure. Like for me, that's more it. Like getting Noah to try something that he was scared of and didn't want, and then he breaks through that and tries that. But I see that as like that's a productive like life experience that he and I got to go through together. So I think there is hidden gems in some of the leisure activities if you look for it. But I don't know that in and of itself, someone having a memory of being on a boat or tubing or a memory of a concert or this sort of thing in and of itself holds value. To me, it's a layer deeper. And I do think they are sprinkled in more. Like, talk me off a ledge.
But I disagree, but
In
I'm
what
curious
capacity?
to where TJ comes in on this. I mean, I guess it just depends how you, again, I think we're wordsmithing a little bit on this, but I'd be curious because that's, well,
I think there's merit to everything that has been brought up, but I think that I like, I think doing whatever it is with someone else gives you reference points for stronger relationships in the future. Humans are, for whatever reason, I've thought about this a lot lately. We are so, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. It's a very simple word, but we love to look back historically at things, right? We
Reflect.
love to reflect. There's another term I'm looking for.
Nostalgia.
Yes. Humans are so nostalgic, and we love to look back at those things and having, no matter what the experience is, if it's tough or if it's not tough, that strengthens relationships. The more experiences you have in general strengthens relationships. I think the other cool thing is providing opportunities for others, whatever that may be. In this instance, we'll use the lakes. It sets a great example for the young kids as to how to be conscientious, how to give and of yourself for others. And, I think we as parents collectively make sure that our kids recognize that. I think all of us, every time our kid gets any opportunity that's provided them from someone else, whether that be a friend, uncle, whoever, we say thank you. Like, you have to. I think we're the only, for me, where it would get lost is if it becomes expected. And, so I see the benefits of experiences in building relationships. And I do agree that relationships are extraordinarily important in navigating life. But I also, if my kids were going and doing something and were at a point in life where it was expected, I would yank them out of there so fast. But if they're present enough to recognize what they're getting to do, and that guides them to pay it forward in the future when they have the opportunity to do so, then I see extreme value there.
I think here's where I agree and disagree. I'm obsessed with creating environments to help people build relationships. And my hope is that when our kids get older, they're going to be like, oh, you remember, like we do with Alec, like, do you remember each summer we'd always come up to the lake and we do this. And for Christmas, we'd spend 3 days together. And whether it was chasing foolish packs and doing push-ups or,
Sure.
miles with the 10-minute, plank, like, the kids don't get a lot of opportunity for the cousins to build a relationship to where when they get older, they'll have a tight-knit relationship like we do with some of our cousins. So creating and fostering those things all summer is what I'm passionate about. Having people up that never get to do those things and they get to have a day of rest and relaxation. Where I'll agree with you at, and what I found out is potentially living at the lake is not a very healthy thing all the time. And giving your kids a lot of leisure time is not super healthy. So I'll agree with you, like, if it's the person's complete and utter life where they wake up with like, what's my meaning today? That's not good. But I'm still not going to go back on the fact that creating memories and being a part of something strengthens relationships. And I agree, it can be done through meetings as well as it could be done through leisure. So
we need people that do that, right? And this is going to be a stretch from where we started this podcast, but I think the way society is going, that's going to be the play.
Relationships are going to be everything.
Well, they're going to be everything, but I mean, there are going to be people that have been successful that are going to have to facilitate a lot of what's happening. I mean, and there's tiers to that, right? Whether it's, I think we are pretty self-aware that we're all on a particular side of the pendulum, if you will. So like the things you provide for people or there are different levels of struggle that people go through. And, we're dealing with, and we can talk about this in a later podcast. We just launched a partnership with New Shoe Day and learning that there are 250,000 kids across the state of Indiana that don't have shoes. So like where you're taking kids that have never been to the lakes before and they get to go out there and do all these cool things and it makes a huge impact on them. There are also kids that like, somebody who's making $60,000 or $70,000 a year and supporting a family is kind of budgeted and is getting by, they could help somebody out by donating $25 for a pair of shoes. So it's the same thing. But what I meant by my earlier comment is I think as we continue to see the great divide happening, I am all for and all behind people that are able to share their success and give people experiences. Because I do think that creates an environment where people in the future will pay it forward no matter what their capabilities are.
Talk about the because what's interesting here is the underlying, the kind of hidden value proposition. You talk about relationships being built that may not otherwise be built. Like, to me, that's where there's maybe some unique value here, because I can tell you, when I look at my relationships, like, I've got great relationships with the guys at Track Tuesday. We get up at 5:15 in the morning, we say the rosary, we run. It's not exactly an enjoyable thing necessarily, but there's deep relationships being formed. Now, we have a forum for that. Where I would agree with you on is, yeah, the cousins don't get together very often. And so there could be a point in their life where family relationships are some of the few relationships that they have. And if that relationship wasn't
Nurtured?
fostered or
Nurtured.
yes,
Sorry.
over time, that relationship doesn't exist, or it's not strong enough to persist when everybody goes their separate ways.
Sure.
So if that is kind of the value proposition, then I think that's a whole new angle and a whole new lens on things.
I think that's 100%. It's really interesting as people come and go in your life. I think as your kids get in different things, different people come and go in your life. But like this summer, we went on a trip to Europe and got to spend quality time with people that we hadn't spent a lot of quality time with, and came back a lot better friends. And now we're hanging out a lot more. And we've had other friends that have, chosen to do different sports, and they were not around at all this summer. And it's kind of like, hey, I haven't seen you in forever, and so, which is, again, fine. Like, we all make those choices to do different things. But I think growing up in the relationships that I've built over the years, they've been mostly socially. Doesn't mean we haven't accomplished stuff together. I did the fraternity thing, but I wish we could phone a friend and get James's opinion, on this. But the intentionality to create meaningful experiences, to allow people to build bonds. Like, my daughter's soccer team was just up there, their high school soccer team. They spent 2 days this week at Huntington Soccer Camp, where they only did like 3 hours of soccer a day, because they want to build a family, because a team is a family that plays better. And the bonds that they built, and they came to the lake, and I reassured them that, like, guys, you're going to win and lose, and it's going to be great, but the relationships you're building now are the lifetime friendships. And, we had 4 people that had never been on a tube before, that, we had some crazy experiences and a bunch of laughter and smiles. And man, that just brings me joy to see that. And I don't know how impactful that's going to be, and if that's going to be something that they look at and say, wow, that was amazing. But they're trying to foster a team. They're trying to build a family, and that's done through going to soccer camps that are more maybe structured and meaningful around the sport, but playing games. They had to do like some presentations and dance-offs and things, or going to the lake. So I think you can get there in a lot of ways, but allowing people an opportunity to build a relationship, and I think it's really hard to do as adults get older, because there's not a lot of commonality. We've talked about this, unless like we get together and run. But outside of that, like, what do adults do? Like, let's get together and have a beer. Well, none of us drink, So I'm not sure how in the heck we got here from school.
I mean, I think relationships there's no question about it, and they're becoming more and more important, and relationships are critical. I know the introverted side of me struggles to say that out loud, but relationships are absolutely a game changer. I think probably the disposition, and James, that you mentioned, phone a friend, his disposition is enjoy the journey. And I think there's some fruit in that, because I think happiness breeds a mindset that is fruitful and bears fruit in a lot of different ways. And so I think there's something to that. But I think when enjoyment becomes the end instead of the means, that's where I'm like, I think we're missing the mark.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah,
I
totally.
can align with that. That's
But
100% true.
I think it ties it all back together. The original question, one of the original, I guess, paths we took off this conversation was, the benefits of being in school. And I think shared experience together develops these relationships and builds these teams, going through a difficult class together, having a difficult teacher together. I think if we talk about, some of the, I mean, obviously relationships are built off shared experience. That's all of it. Right. And so But I think if we look back at a lot of the relationships that we've had, the text threads that we're on with our friends from 30 years ago or from high school, there still are probably more often than not, we'll refer to either a shared experience or a shared that we had, whether that's a music artist or a movie we watched back in the day. And so I think there's a secondary benefit of a little bit more school is going through like the commiserating. I'm seeing my kids again, they're going back to school last week of July. This morning, we had a couple of kids, we were carpooling down to cross country and they were like, I hate school, like it was commiserating together. And I think there's, that's going to be foundational as it relates to their relationships going forward. So,
They hate school together.
yeah, right. But there's.
Are you guys aware of the new Indiana, it's great, the new school system and the lineup and how they're doing it?
New diplomas.
The new diplomas. Well, one of the
heard
things
about it the other day,
I was looking up, we just scheduled Hadley today, so I got to really sink my teeth into it. But there's a new diploma. It's not the Core 40 anymore. There's basically 3 paths. It's
You mentioned
college prep, employment, and military.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 preps. And then there's now there's 6 seals. So there's these seals that you get for, you can go the honors college, the honors plus. You can get, so the way it's set up is that you'll have 30 college credit hours done if you go through the honors plus as part of the core program, not even including the AP classes you can take on that. So you'll have your freshman year done. And that's kind of built into it. So one of the interesting things about a lot of the European countries is at the junior high level, they're dividing them like that more into employment, more into and starting to teach. So that's one of the differences. We talked about the days in length, but they're moving them into different areas a little sooner than we are. But it's really interesting to see how the school system. And then the other thing that Indiana state law passed is no cell phones, period.
Yeah.
Cell phones, earbuds, headphones, like you can't bring it in the school. Now,
Ours,
our
they can leave in
counselor
their
said you
lockers.
can put it in their locker, but confiscation of phones is because Roman would be like, hey, we got bored in our class and we all got out and we played, Clash of Clans together. Nope.
It's different. Ours is the same rule, but my kids are very different in that regard. Like Kennedy will bring her phone to school once a week. She won't obviously.
Wait
now
till they
there's
get older.
rules.
When they get older, it becomes.
Well, it's that level for Kay.
Okay.
She doesn't leave her side, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not mad at it. I don't, I think some of the I don't want to get too off on a tangent, but I think some of the fears that some of the parents have about wanting to know where their kid are 24, that's completely unfounded.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about
It's
that.
ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane. So I guess my question to you guys in closing would be, if you could make 1 or 2 major changes to the system that's evolved over the last 150 years, what changes would you make and why? That would build upon where we're at. What do you think is in excess? What do you think is under emphasized? And how would you change the system to lean into that?
You want to go first?
Well, yeah, I don't mind going first. I think a couple of things that have stuck with me. The 4-day school week would be an interesting one because it would be nice to see sports being played on Friday, Saturday, and not Sunday. I think the church day's been lost, and it's really frustrating to have Sunday. And, we got a game in Zionsville, and it's a 7-hour day, and you're just smoked. So I think that would be interesting of how, if you had a 4-day school day, how some of the sports could be broken up a little differently if you had a longer weekend. I really like that approach. I still think I would appreciate a longer summer, or just because of what we like to do and the entertainment things that we do. I understand we're probably unique in that, but I would take, if you could give it, I'd take a week off and put us back maybe mid-August. And then I would, maybe it's 2 Fridays off a month. I don't know what it is, but I would do something along those lines. I would also be open to longer days, 170 days, but going a little bit longer would be fine too.
The changes I'd want to make, I don't know if they would take, because I like where things are going with dividing people, if you will. I wish it was more I mean, you said there's 3 paths, maybe a little bit more diversified and a few more paths where, because I think a lot of what we deal with is, you see these kids gravitate towards particular subjects offline from school because of the way they're presented. And they're being presented by individuals that have a wonderful ability to communicate or produce content or whatever that is. And I think that, all the teachers, if you get into that, you're good intention to begin with, but I think there's a lot of burnout in that space, and we've talked about and this has been topic of conversation since teachers probably came to pass, where they're undercompensated. And so I think at times, you get burned out and you give up in the fight, and you're not able to present, you're not able to keep focus from the kids and present things in a way that it's enticing. So the reason I say all that is because for me, it's like, well, if you divided kids up a little bit more specifically into these areas where they're more interested, could you have a little bit larger class, 50 to 100 kids, get a little bit better, or compensate teachers a little bit more so that we could dynamically deliver this information, right? Because, I think you've said this about Roman, like half of these teachers' jobs, and yes, it's going to be like this, the younger kids are, is just babysitting, just trying to keep them focused for a few minutes. And at a time, because so many of them are distracted because they're in these environments where they're not focused because it's just not interesting. And I don't think that's not me saying that, oh God, everything has to be specifically tailored and 100% the most interesting topic ever. But I think there's potentially, from a change perspective, a way to get kids on the right path a little bit earlier and expand class sizes and improve teachers' abilities to deliver the information a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, I would say I think building in applications sooner, so people have an idea of why they're learning what they're learning. I think the problem is the kids don't have any sort of why. They're there because they have to be there, and that's kind of it. Nobody's there because they see a value proposition. Some of that is just their brain's not there, and they're not thinking about that in that capacity at that age. But I think we could do a whole lot better. I mean, you think about, I would press to say if there are 4 hours of pure educational content being delivered, I would be surprised if a kid's holding on to more than 10% of that.
Sure.
Just because it's basically being forced down their throat and there's not a lot of application of it, and or technology is going to do a lot of it, or for whatever reason, I don't think they're engaged in digesting information. You think about the amount of information we can consume when we're actually interested in a topic. It's unbelievable. It's 10x. I think if you get a kid that's really interested in a topic, in 2 hours, they could probably consume 2 weeks worth of, what someone might learn on it. So I think figuring out how to build in applications so people can find areas of interest sooner. I do think the apprenticeship model that they do overseas is brilliant. And I think there's a lot to that because earlier people can identify the passions and start to curate their craft. But I would like to see that and kids having more of an understanding why they're learning, because I think that will exponentially take more advantage of the time that's being spent.
The one thing we didn't talk about is just what they're learning. And I think what you just said is like, by the time something can get through and get approved to be taught, it's going to be irrelevant to some extent. Like, what are we learning? Do we have to memorize? Do we have to know ELA format, writing papers, and, with this, knowing how to what's that called, where you had to know how to put all your references in place and do all those things and write a paper. Yeah, yes. MLA formatting, is that relevant anymore? Is it? We don't have to memorize the quadratic formula, although most of us probably still know it. What are the things that can be valuable? Because I think that's where you start to gain attention. When we do the IMG internship week, most of the time we've got people engaged in the content of what they're even talking about. And so that, to me, being able to keep the system updated, even colleges are going to struggle with that.
I think they're trying. You see some of it. You see they're trying. I was talking to a teacher Wednesday. We went on a run, and he was like, we were talking about I don't know when it became a requirement, but a personal finance class, right? Adding some of these things in, but because of the bureaucracy, most of it's half steps, right? You know, they tried to implement the new math approach a while back, and there
Terrible,
was
by the way. All
well,
the kids
it
hate it.
was,
Made it
but
harder.
it was, but like when you listen to the reason that they did it, it was so when you're in situations where, you know, when we do when most humans do mental math, they're breaking, you know, if they're doing like a complex multiplication, a lot of times they're breaking it down to smaller numbers and then adding those smaller numbers together. So they tried to look at how we do things and they tried to teach how we do things, and it became overly complex, but they were attempting to like, hey, I know as an adult, when I'm in the store and I'm trying to figure out a cost of something, or when I'm here and I'm trying to figure out this math problem and I'm doing 76 times whatever, I'm doing 70 times 4 first, then I'm doing 6 times 4, and then I'm adding them up, right? And getting to 306 a lot faster than I would if I was doing it another way.
Sure.
And so I think they're trying, but man, I don't envy them.
It's tough. The system, any big governmental system is really hard to have any type of major reform, just because when you cover such a wide variety, I don't know how many kids there are in the Indiana school system, but like you said, there's 70,000 kids even without shoes. So like you're trying to solve a problem for a vast group of people with very, very different environments and upbringings, and it's just complex. It's just tough to do.
It's going to be really hard. I think someone mentioned colleges. You mentioned colleges. They're going to have their hands full, I think, in the coming decade. And I think AI is really going to challenge their value proposition substantially. I mean, I think a lot's going to come down to relationships, and you're going to have to, I think the one underlying skill that is important, and whether that gets built by a quadratic equation or something else in language arts or whatever, is problem solving is a massive one, and creativity and innovation are also going to be probably even more important in this world, because I think AI struggles a little bit more on that side of things versus STEM. But I think those are, I really, the only way out of it is to look at those core skills that we're trying to build. There's a problem solving, creativity, discipline, innovation, whatever, and then work backwards. And just the system's going to move way too slow. The good news is everybody's going to be in the same boat. So outside of probably some outliers who are homeschooled or whatever, that, you know, are going to be able to be counted on hands and toes, you know, they'll be maybe wildly successful. And then, you know, everyone else is going to be playing catch up.
To that point, we did decide to put Isaiah back in school for a lot of the reasons we said today. That was a really tough decision, and we had a few days of tears behind that. But it was a lot for Angel, who did a lot of the education component. And it was really hard, but we ran into a second grade teacher who was at golf camp that Isaiah went to. And I had come to pick him up, and she came over and she said, because Isaiah had come over, and she said, is that your son? I was like, yeah. She goes, I got to tell you, he is the just nicest young gentleman. He came up to me and just said, introduced himself and said, so do you live on the lake? I mean, he's 8, right? But he even knows how to ask questions. And she was like, I teach second grade, and I don't have a student that could talk to, you know, that can articulate and build rapport like that. And it was like reassuring that you can develop those skills elsewhere and probably develop them even better when you're now. That's not a question you'd ask an 8-year-old, like, hey, do you live on the lake? But his ability to relate, I think there were some really big benefits from doing that. But socially and being around friends and the friend group for us is super important. So
St. Paul.
Yeah, he'll be going back to St. Paul. He'll be in 3rd grade, and we were able to have a lot of his buddies up for a day at the lake to build the relationship back. So we had 3 or 4 of his friends up, and we want to reintroduce them and play together. And so he's not tickled about it. It'd be great if we did have a 4-day week, and then he could spend some time still going with us. But for now, it is what it is.
4-day week would be interesting.
Yeah.
The idea of Fridays and Saturdays and then Sundays being a rest day, that'd be compelling.
Rest day. Do we even have a rest day?
No, not anymore.
Well, that was a big swath, school and
everything else.
and everything in between. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.
58. That's pretty good.
Was good.